West, I see, and I am now recording. All right, so hi everybody. I'm Bethany. You may remember me. I was the previous ProCard technician before Melissa. I'm currently the ProCard backup and also working with payment services. So I'm going to go over a few hospitality specific topics and then I'll hand things back to Melissa to talk about ProCard reconciliation. So, when you filled out your registration for this training, we had a question about what challenges have you encountered or what topics would you like to see discussed relating to hospitality. And we got a lot of really great answers back from you guys. So I'm going to touch on a couple of those hospitality FAQs first. And the first is the hospitality form and P2P. So we now have two separate hospitality forms and processes. There is one within CSU by P2P, and there's also one that lives outside of CSU by P2P. So P2P, primarily when you would need to submit that one is if you're having on-campus catering. So if you are having a company like, say, Mossman's or anybody else come into CSUB and serve food, wait staff, setup, anything like that, then you do need to do that through CSU by P2P. And that is its own hospitality form. You just fill it out when you click on the link on the P2P homepage. It takes you directly to that form and you fill it out the same way you would an IT software request or a goods and services request or anything else. The other one is used for ProCard purchases, and that is the Power Form on the Forms Gateway, which is what we will be discussing today. Um, and that is for non-catering expenses and also Aramark catering. So that leads into when do you fill out the form? You will fill out a hospitality justification form primarily for food. That is its primary purpose, but it can also be used for entertainment services and non-contractual venue rental. Those are options on the form as well. I will say that we have removed gift cards from the hospitality justification form. There will be a new gift card request form coming very soon. If you need to buy gift cards right now, please just contact me because that form is not live yet, but it will be available very soon. And then I know some people had also asked which departments are exempt from the hospitality justification form. There are, I believe, three departments that are exempt. So ASI clubs are exempt from filling out the hospitality justification form. That is only for clubs. Other ASI events do have to do the form. So if you're using a MA club project number, that is when that would be exempt because that is its own funding source and they have their own reporting guidelines. Also, student housing, when they have student events, those are exempt as well. And some athletics events can be exempt. One thing that I will note is if you were having a staff meeting in any of those departments, that does still need to go through the regular hospitality process. The only events that are exempt are student events, clubs, that type of thing. But if ASI staff is having, say, a holiday party, then they do need to do hospitality for that. And then the final question that we had is which signers are required? So, for our purposes, there are a couple signers you have to use for certain business units. Spa Post Award is always required for BK Spa funding, and Heath Niemeyer's signature is required for BKFDN funding. As for which DOA signers are required, that is up to the cardholder or requester's department. So that is something to talk to either your boss or your department admin about. But as for those signers that are required on our end, it is mostly just for spa and foundation. Otherwise, it will just be your DOA, and we verify that that is valid. Other than that, it is up to the individual department. So those are our FAQs, and then I am going to go ahead and jump into a demo of the form.
Bethany, can I
Yes.
just preface this before you do your demo?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I don't know. I know I've worked a lot with a lot of you on the P2P side. I don't know if a lot of you know about my new role. So I am now interim director of payment services. So my vision for this department is one of collaboration. So I am, along with everybody in payment services, am restructuring, rebranding, and reinventing this department. So I want to work collaboratively with all of you guys on campus. So with these forms, I'm not going to be putting a lot of instructions, a lot of this needs to be done, do this, red, bold, underline, highlighted. That's what makes these forms confusing and hard to fill out. I want to make your guys' jobs easier so that you can focus on your job, which is helping students or helping your faculty. So we really stripped this form down to make it understandable and easy to fill out because that's what you guys just need to be able to fill out this form and turn it in. Okay, so I really am going to rely on you guys to attend these trainings to understand the policy and just be able to fill out this form. Okay, so I hope that what you guys see will make you breathe a sigh of relief. So hopefully you like what you see. Go ahead, Bethany.
I'm sorry, can I just input one more thing too as well?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, I kindly ask that everyone please wait until the end of Bethany's demo so we can just get through it first. If you want to put your questions in the chat, you can do so, or you can just write them down and wait at the end. But we just kindly ask that you just kind of wait for any questions, comments, or concerns until after that.
Yes, thank you,
Okay, I'm
Melissa.
good.
And I think that after this demo, you're going to have a lot of questions cleared up. So thank you, Melissa.
Yeah,
Thank you
and
for
we
that.
will do Q&A at the end, so there will be an
Oh, yes,
opportunity to ask any questions you want to ask at the end.
go for it.
Okay, so Melissa, I'm requesting to share my screen so that I can start demoing.
I've allowed it.
Okay, and I am going to go to the Campus Forms Gateway and click on the Hospitality Justification form. So this form is a power form. You guys are probably familiar with power forms. We have quite a few of them here on campus. But the way it works is you click on the form from the Forms Gateway, and then you'll be taken to this landing page. Landing page has some instructions on it. You can definitely read those before you get started, especially if you're new to filling out the form. Um, and then you are going to put in your contact information. So for this instance, I am just going to do the required, and I'm going to make them all myself because I'm just testing. But if you were actually filling out this form, you would put in yourself here as the contact, and then you would put in your DOA approver, which is also required, and then you would use any other approvers that you need. So I'm just going to call this test form. And if you are actually filling out this form, you would put the name of your event or expense here and your department here. And both of these fields are required as well. So you can see some of those signers in here for business units. This is for SPA, grant analyst, AVP of GRASP, as if you're spending over $3,000 out of BK SPA. These optional fields are for if you need more than one DOA approver, if you're using multiple chart fields, or say if your chair and your dean both want to sign, you can put those additional signers here. Reviewers are a staff member that can review the form before the DOA approver signs it. Um, and yeah, those are your signer fields, so you can use as many or as few of those as you want. Contact and DOA are the only two that are required for everything. So I'm going to submit that, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and then I will go to my inbox to find it. I see Cami is asking for the new link. Cami, are you here in the meeting with us? Melissa, can you see if, let me see if she's here. Yeah, she still needs the link. I'm going to send that to her real quick, and then I'll keep going with the demo.
Melissa, go ahead and send that to her. Bethany, go ahead and keep going.
Okay, it's Cami Salyards. She needs the link. Patricia Raya as well.
I'm in.
You're
I'm
in.
in,
Okay.
Bethany. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Well, for some reason, this is not working. It took me to the old form.
Yeah, I don't think the new form is live yet, so just demo off of your Word document.
Okay. All right. So the new form is not live just yet. It will be live later today. But you will follow those steps that I showed you to submit it. And then I'm going to just go ahead and jump to a PDF form that I have prepared. It will look the same as what you'll see when you go to your review and sign button from your inbox.
Sorry, guys, we're working really hard and fast to make these changes. So I just got the test new hospitality justification form from Jamie and IT. I tested it this morning and said make it live. So I'm just waiting for IT to flip the switch to make this live. So it should be live within the next few hours.
Okay, I am navigating to the form. I am sorry for the delay. Please bear with me. All right, and I have got my new form here. So this is what the new form looks like. Can everybody see my screen? You should see ProCard Hospitality Justification Form. So this form is only for ProCard purchases. The other one within P2P is what you will use if you're making a P2P purchase. This one is only for ProCard. So that will be for non-catering expenses, such as if you were going to Panera and picking up sandwiches, going and getting pizzas from Costco, anything like that. Or also if you are using our campus catering company, Aramark. So the first thing you are going to want to do is select a business purpose, and you can only pick one. So you'll want to pick whichever one applies best to the event that you're having. If you select memorial, retirement, or farewell, you will need to enter the employee's name here. If you select service award, you will need to enter their name and years of service here. The other ones do not have a text field, so if you select professional development meeting, employee morale function, or participation incentive, or outreach, you don't need to fill in anything for that. And then if you select other, you'll just need to put a description here. So I'm just going to do professional development meeting for my example. And then you will want to select your attendee's relationship to CSUB. You can select as many or as few of these as you want. Please select at least one. So in this case, I'm going to say staff and faculty are attending this event. And again, if you select other, you'll want to put a description here. And then you will enter your event fields here, event name. I'm just going to say staff meeting. You'll enter your event date or date range. So you can put a range in this field if you have a multi-day event or if you're doing a blanket form. And I will give you more information on that at the end. It does have to be a date range within the current fiscal year. So this can't cross over between fiscal years. So right now you could do a date range up to the end of fiscal year 24-25. But for this, I'm just going to say that it's one event taking place on the 21st. And then here you will enter your suppliers. So for this one, I am going to say that it is Aramark. You can put more than one supplier. It's not a very long line, so you probably could put a max of 2 or 3, but you can always attach a list if you need more information. That applies to all of these fields. If you can't fit the information that you want to enter in the text field, you will have 4 attachment files available to you, and you can add documentation explaining anything that you couldn't fit on the form. So I am going to move on to section 2, cost details. And the first question is, will catering costs be included? So catering costs are only for Aramark on this form. All other catering has to be through P2P. So if you select yes, in this case I did Aramark, so I would select yes. Then you have to attach a quote from Aramark along with your guest list or event flyer. If you select no, if you're not using Aramark, you're not catering, you're just picking up the food, then you only need a guest list or flyer. You don't need any quote. And the guest list or flyer, these apply to slightly different circumstances. You may be familiar with this from your ProCard reconciliation packets. The guest list is for if you have a known list of invitees or attendees. It doesn't have to be the final attendees. It can be the people that you invited. Since this is a pre-approval form, you might not know exactly who's going to attend, and that's okay. But if say you're inviting 15 people, you would attach a guest list with their names. The flyer is more for larger events when you don't know exactly who's going to attend or where you're not inviting specific people. So, for instance, if Student Affairs has a student outreach event that is advertised to the entire campus, that would be a time when you would just attach a flyer because you can't know who's going to attend or who even received the invite. It just went out to all students or all staff or whatever the case might be. So you would attach one or the other of those. You can do both if you want, if you have both. But just make sure that if you selected yes for catering, that you attach your quote. And this form does not have the attachment fields on it, but when the Power form is live, you will have 4 attachment fields available to you here. And you can attach this and then any other documentation that you need to attach. So next, we are going to put in our number of attendees. I will say the staff meeting has 10 attendees, and the cost is going to be $15 per person. And this field will calculate automatically when you put these two in. Make sure that you keep in mind the maximums for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and light refreshments. You don't want to go over that for a single meal. Now, you are allowed to enter a number into this field that is above this if you're doing multiple meals. And I will touch on that at the end. But for a single meal, you want to make sure that you stay within this. And then the other important thing to keep in mind that is not listed here, but that is very important when you're making your ProCard purchases, is that the maximum tip limit is 20%. You are not allowed to tip more than 20% on a ProCard. So just make sure to keep that in mind when you're making your purchases. And then I'm going to move on to these fields. Will alcohol be included? Yes or no? Alcohol is only allowed out of foundation or trust funding. It's not allowed out of stateside, BK 001. But if you are including alcohol, you would select yes, and then put the appropriate fund in here. Will venue rental be included? You will select yes or no. If you select yes, you'll need to enter the dollar amount for the venue rental here. This is just for if you're like renting a room at a restaurant, a party room. It's not for contractual rental agreements. Those have to be done through P2P. And the final field is will entertainment costs be included? So if you're having something like bowling at the Boulevard, you would enter that here. And again, if you said yes, you will enter the dollar amount. For this example, I'm just going to say no to all 3 of those. Next, you will enter your chart field. I did see somebody had a question as to why account code is not included in the chart field. So you're not actually charging a specific chart field right now. You're just telling us, or you're telling your DOA approvers rather, which chart field you are going to charge. When it comes time to do your ProCard reconciliation, that's when you will actually charge it. And you'll want to make sure it's the same as what you have on here, or if it's not the same, you will want to make notes on your documentation explaining why it's not the same. So for this instance, I am going to put in payment services, BK001, D21170. And the account code is not listed here because it's not really a wide selection. There's really only 2 that most departments can use for hospitality. 660828 is for if you're including official guests. 660090 is for if you're not including official guests. ASI also has 1 additional account that they can use, but it is always going to be one of those 2. So we just have them listed here. We don't have a text field for that. But you will charge that when you're doing your ProCard statement report. And then I'm going to put my whole 150 here. Grand total calculates automatically. You want to make sure that your grand total covers everything that you've listed up here. So if you have costs here, here, and here, you need to make sure that's all covered by this number here. You do have space for 2 chart fields and 2 totals on here for each chart field. If you need more chart fields than that, you can attach a sheet of paper with your additional chart fields and totals listed. And then the final section is your authorization. So you will sign as the requester, and then anybody else that you entered on the landing page will go here. And that concludes the form. I'm going to take a sip of water, and then I will let you guys know about blanket forms.
Okay, I'm gonna go through these questions really quick just before we move on to blankets. So
Okay.
Marlene, if we filled out the old form, do we also need to complete this one? No. So this, if you've already completed the old hospitality justification, you don't need to complete this one. We're just training you on this new form because this new form is going live today on the Campus Forms Gateway. So no, Marlene, don't worry about this new form for old forms. Old forms are already completed. You've done your due diligence, so you're good on that.
Yeah.
Um, what category would resource fair slash tabling snacks count as?
I'm going to
Outreach.
say that would be an outreach event.
I would concur with that. Um, does this form include if an employee takes out a guest or candidates and uses their own credit card slash cash, not a pro card? So that would actually be on a manual DP because that's considered a reimbursement. So that would not be this form. Can we add a small area just to type up to 5 names of attendees rather than having to make a separate document to upload? I don't think so. I'm trying to keep this form as uncrowded as possible. Um, let me, I'm gonna get back to you on that, Tanya. Natasha, who is considered an official guest? So an official guest is Bethany. You want to help me out with that one?
Yeah, sure. I can take that one. So the short answer is that an official guest is someone who is not a CSUB employee.
Mhm.
They can be a student or they can be an actual guest to our campus, like if we're having a donor, hosting people from other campuses, guest speaker, anything like that. The main thing, though, is just that they're not an employee here. So 660090 is what you would use for employee hospitality. And if there are any official guests invited, even if there's one guest and 10 employees, you would use this one. So this is only for if it is only employees. And there is a tricky little caveat here with student assistants, because student assistants are both a guest or a student, so that would count as an official guest usually, but they're also an employee. So it depends on why you invited them. If you invited a student assistant because they're an employee in your department, you would charge this one. If you invited a student assistant because they're a student, then they would fall under this. So the same person can be an official guest or not, depending on why they were invited to the event.
Okay.
And that is explained in the hospitality policy, so you can always reference that too, if you need a refresher on what an official guest is or on any of these limits or what types of events are allowed or anything like that. You can always look at that policy. It's on our webpage.
Okay. Tanya, does catering also mean delivery? Can we order pizza and have it delivered and not go through P2P? Yes. So I'm clarifying with safety and risk about this, but as far as I know and understand, catering does not include delivery because they're literally just coming and handing you the goods and nothing is being done on campus. So until you hear from me otherwise, no, catering does not include delivery. Like Uber Eats, any of that stuff, no.
Yeah, it's only for if they are setting up, serving, doing anything like that here on campus. Okay, so are we clear to move on to blanket forms, or do we have more questions?
There was one that Christina just asked. It said, but don't we need it for the DP, the
I'm circling
hospitality?
back with her on that.
Oh,
Yeah. No, if you're going to pick up pizza or Panera, that is not catering. Catering is literally Mossman's or Hordel's is like coming on campus. They're setting up chafing dishes. People are coming and saying, okay, here's my plate, and they're serving you food. Because let me explain the back end of why that needs to go through P2P. So when catering is on campus and someone is serving you food, like at University Day, Hodel's, or I don't know what the caterer is because I'm not in procurement anymore. They are coming and they are setting up food on campus. And we're going to go through the line and we're going to have plates and we're going to be eating food on campus. So that has to go through P2P for multiple reasons. That needs to go to procurement because procurement needs to make sure that safety and risk has a health permit on file with them. Procurement needs to also make sure that safety and risk has insurance on file for them because this vendor is coming on campus. We have to make sure that the campus is protected, that we have insurance. If somebody gets food poisoning, we have to make sure that we have their insurance because we're going to go after their insurance before we use our insurance first. Does that kind of help paint the picture and make it a little bit more understandable? If I'm going off campus and I'm going to somebody's place of business, I'm going to Panera, there's the liabilities on them. When stuff's happening on campus, the liabilities on us. So that's why that stuff has to go through P2P because procurement has to vet more things because it's happening on our campus. That's kind of the difference why one has to go through P2P and one doesn't.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point too, Bianca, that there are some instances in which off-site catering is allowable on ProCard as well. Like if you're having an event, you're having your department holiday dinner, and you're having it at a restaurant, and you're renting the party room. Even if they're catering the food for that, sometimes that is allowable on ProCard. If it is non-contractual, if you're not signing a rental agreement, then you can pay for that on your ProCard because it's not here on campus. They are catering, but it's at their facility, not ours.
And the reason why the contractual agreements with catering have to go through P2P is because the agreement, a buyer has to look through all of that verbiage and make sure that there's no liability to CSUB. And then the buyer's looking through all of this crazy contractual verbiage and making sure that we have to strike through any of that verbiage that puts the liability on CSUB. We have to go back and forth with the Marriott or whatever. And then we work through that. And then once we get it to a point where we feel like it's good, then Marina Manzano and procurement has to sign it. So that's why anything that has a contract in it, that has to go through P2P because a buyer has to look at that and then it has to be signed by Marina Manzano because she has authorization on behalf of CSUB to sign contracts. Or if it's like foundation and we're using foundation funds, Heath has to sign that contract. So that's the difference of why if it's a contract and we're renting a room or something like um, Alumni Hall of Fame or whatever, like that's why that has to go into P2P. I'm hoping this is making sense. But again, if you ever have questions on stuff like this, always feel free to ask procurement or ask one of us. We can help you through that stuff. Okay, I think you're good to move on to blankets.
Okay, so I am going to talk about multi-day forms and blanket forms. Multi-day forms and blanket forms are kind of a secret menu item. There is no option on here where it specifically says click here to fill out a blanket form, but you can do it with the options that are available to you on this form. So the first thing I'm going to do is a multi-day form, which is not the same as a blanket form. Multi-day form is if you're having something like University Week. It's one event, but it takes place over a couple of days and it includes a couple of different meals. So you can do one form for the whole event. You don't have to do a bunch of different forms for breakfast this day, lunch that day. So I'm just going to say University Week 8, 21, and 22, 24, and we're just going to pretend it's still Aramark. Of course, the catering for University Week, I'm sure, went through P2P because I don't think they are using Aramark. But for this example, we'll pretend that they are. And then you would select yes or no for catering, same as before. And really the only thing that is going to be different here is going to be your dollar amounts here. So in this instance, we'll say 100 people are going to attend. And this number is not going to be within these limits for a multi-day event because we're selecting dollar amounts for multiple meals. So, say we're having $25 for breakfast on the first day, $25 for lunch on the first day, $25 for breakfast on the second day, $25 for lunch on the second day. Those are all within the limits, but our total is going to be $100 per person for all four of those. So I'm just going to put the grand total here. It will update. We now have $10,000 on here, 100 per person, 100 people. And then the important thing is, since this looks like it's out of compliance, you need to attach your backup documentation that explains what's going on. So you would attach a spreadsheet, a Word document, any type of document saying this is for 4 meals. It'll be $25 per person per meal, and just show the breakdown of how many meals you have. And then if you're catering all of the meals, you would need to attach a quote for each one. It would all be the same flyer since it's all the same event. But just basically tell us the story of what you're doing so that when we see this $100 per person, then we'll see in your backup, oh, it's not actually $100 for a single meal, it's 4 meals. So you can do that if you're doing a multi-day event. And another thing that I didn't note before is that you absolutely can guess on this number or even just put a rounded number if you have no idea how many people are going to attend. If you're doing outreach, the invitation went out to the campus and you just have no idea how many students are going to show up, you can just put a rounded number like 100 or 200 and then you can kind of back into it. So if you know you're spending a certain amount of money, you know you're spending $5,000, just put a rounded number here and then divide $5,000 by that number to get your cost per person. And then it will come out to your total that you want. So the other thing that you can do is an actual blanket form, which is for an event series. And you can do that for the entire fiscal year, or you can do it for a semester, a month, anything within a fiscal year. Now, we do ask that you put a specific event series. We don't want a blanket form for anything we want to do this fiscal year. That's too broad. So you can put monthly staff meeting, fiscal year 24-25. And let's say we're always going to use, well, actually, let's not do an always going to use. Let's just say various suppliers. You can do that if it's a blanket form. No, we're not going to cater this event. Going to, for this one, for a blanket form, you are not actually going to do this the way it is set up to be done. You're going to start with your total. So let's say I have a budget of $5,000 for these monthly staff meetings. So I am going to see how many people I'm going to have attending the staff meeting. Say it's 10 people, always going to be about 10 people. I put that in there. I want my total to be 5,000. So in this case, I would just put $500 per person, which obviously is not a compliant amount going off of these, but it is a blanket form. So we will recognize that you're not spending $500 per person at a single event. That's just your total. This is the important number here. This is the number that you have budgeted. You do have to track against this. When you run out, you have to submit a new form if the fiscal year is not up yet. But this is the important one. You're really just guessing about how many people are going to attend each event, and then you're making this number, whatever number will make this total come out to your budget. It is important that you have this number filled in. Blanket forms with a blank dollar amount will not be accepted anymore because those are basically a blank check. It's too vague. So you do have to have this dollar amount here. But these are really not that important for a blanket form. You just have to put them in so that this will calculate to your correct budget. And then the rest of the form would be the same. You would select whether or not alcohol is included, entertainment, venue rental. Again, these would just be an estimate. If you think you're going to include entertainment in some of these events, you would just estimate how much you're going to spend for that in the entire year. And then you would put your chart fields in here. This grand total will be the same, and then you'll have your signers the same as before. And for that, you don't really need to attach a flyer because you're not going to have the flyers ahead of time. What you'll need to do then is you'll need to attach your flyer on the back end when you do your ProCard report. So when you do your ProCard report, you will go in, edit these details to match your specific meeting. So for instance, I could put in here August staff meeting, the date, the supplier, how many people actually attended, how much we spent per person, how much the total was, and then you'll be tracking all of that against this blanket that has your $5,000 budget on it. And the final note that I will make is on signers. So if you are using foundation funding, you will need to have Heath Niemeyer approve here. That is the primary funding that we'll be using for alcohol. You can also use a trust fund for alcohol, but I think people usually use foundation. Um, and then if you are using BK SPA funding, you will need your grant analyst to sign always. And if you're spending more than $3,000, you will also need the director of SPA post-award to sign. And I think that is everything that I need to cover on multi-day and blanket forms. Bianca and Melissa, do you know of anything that I missed?
Can you kind of talk about how to, I'm not sure if you did, how to modify the form as you're using it throughout the fiscal year?
Yeah. So she's talking about that back end process when you're doing your ProCard reconciliation, how you have to go in and add in these details for everything that you didn't put on the blanket because you didn't know it up front. And you will just have to print out this form to PDF in order to do that because when you get back the signed copy, it'll have that little blue banner on it that doesn't let you edit anything. If you print it to PDF, then you should be able to use Adobe Acrobat to just go in with your fill and sign and put notes on it. So you could just put a note underneath here that says August staff meeting, put a note here with the date or above, wherever you want to put it. Supplier, same thing, and then your dollar amounts. You'll just enter all of that in, make your little notes on the form, and then attach your flyer with it and that will show us like how much you actually spent for this event and we'll see what your overall budget was, what the meeting series is, but then we'll also be able to see your event details for like say you spent $100 for the August meeting, you'll have that all recorded here. And unless there's anything else that you guys know of that I missed, I'm gonna hand things back to Melissa now.
We have two questions in the chat. So, Cami, regarding alcohol using a trust fund, is there additional pre-authorization required? We have always not purchased alcohol, so if there is another authorization required, we would like to know.
Okay, so I'm actually not sure about that. I know it depends on the trust fund because some of them allow alcohol and some of them don't, and it will say in the trust agreement whether or not it's allowable. I don't know if there is a specific alcohol request form that you need to use. I could do a little more research into that. For this form, you would not need a special authorization for that. You just need your DOA signer. Whoever is the valid DOA signer on that trust fund could just sign off on this. Um, and then you would be good to go. But I will do some research and get back to you on whether or not there's another form that needs to be completed.
Okay, Marta, do we need to attach this original form with the edited form and flyer when submitting?
When it's for ProCard reconciliation, Martha, I think that's what you're referring to. You don't need to put the original form because the edited form will have all that original information on it. You're just going in and under those specific sections of the form to add the information that corresponds with the event the form was used for during that fiscal year.
Okay, Andrea, I use foundation funds. If we have a mix of university advancement employees and outside guests, for example, party in the park or small dinners, do I need to use the form?
So I believe, and Bianca, correct me if I'm wrong, but university advancement is exempt from using this form. That is one additional exempt department that I forgot to mention earlier. University advancement, if they are using foundation funding, they don't have to submit this form. And that is university advancement is hosting the event.
That is correct.
So if you are hosting the event within UA, and you're using solely foundation funding, you don't have to do this form. If you're using CMP, then you have to fill the form out for your CMP expenses. But if you're only using foundation, then you just do your ProCard reconciliation. And Heath's signature will be on your ProCard reconciliation, and then you can attach the flyer, but you don't need one of these. If another department is hosting the event, then they would need to fill this out if they're using foundation, and then Heath would sign here.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that because I have been using the form when I've had a mix and no one's told me not to. So I just wanted to, make sure. And then also we do have two groups. So we have Alumni Association and 60 plus. So anytime I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So anytime, if an Alumni Association board member initiates a charge or like a 60 plus member initiates a charge, and I need to do like a direct pay, that would be when I would use the hospitality fund. Is that right?
I I will verify and circle back with you
Okay.
on that.
Only because they're non-employees.
Right. So let me verify this
Okay,
and I will get a confirmed answer for you.
perfect. Thank you.
Mhm. Natasha, once this form is signed through Adobe Sign, we typically cannot edit a form.
Bethany, do you mind just doing the example that you have there, and just printing it to PDF so that way they can see kind of how they can edit the form once it's, even though it has that restriction?
Yeah, so when you get your completed form back, it will be an uneditable form, but you can edit it if you print it to PDF. So the process is the same as with this here. So you can go here, file print, or you can hit Control P on your keyboard. That has the same effect. And then when you go here, you should see a list of printers you could pick from, and everybody should have Microsoft Print to PDF. So when you do that, you'll do this with your form. You'll get the form that's attached with the email that you get that says document completed, and then you'll do this and you'll click print, and then it will ask you where you want to save it to. And then you save it there, and then you can go and open that copy, and you will have the ability to edit it. You can go in with your fill and sign tool, and make notes on it.
Marlene is saying the menu is different if you're using a Mac.
The menu is different if you're using a Mac. Well, I'm on PC, so I can't give the exact commands for that, but it should be whatever process you would use to print a file to a printer, except you select Microsoft PDF for the printer, Microsoft Print to PDF instead of an actual printer.
Okay. Valerie, the hospitality states that meals or light refreshments may be charged to state funds for meetings and events attended by employees of the same work location and which are held infrequently, for example, quarterly. The example shown here presumes monthly staff meetings are allowable to serve meals or light refreshments. Is hospitality for monthly meetings an allowable expense?
So I'm actually not sure on that. The hospitality policy, I don't think gets any more specific than infrequent. This is just an example. Um, so maybe a more accurate example would be something like monthly outreach event, because that would certainly be allowable. If you want to ask your department, or I can get with Tina and do more research on that if you would like to know more about that. But I don't think our guidance from the chancellor's office is very specific in that regard. I think they just say infrequent.
Okay, so I'm going to jump. The policy on the CSU does not state example quarterly because ours does, the CSUB campus does.
I'm not completely sure on that. I would have to do a little bit more research. It might say example quarterly, but I don't think they give a hard guideline for how often of a staff meeting is actually allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. I'm taking notes on everything we have to circle back on. So I have everything I need to circle back, and I will circle back.
Yeah, and I will
Um,
look into that as well.
okay, Nadia. Okay, so Starbucks and Panera, you would fill out this hospitality justification form and you would charge it to your ProCard and you would do your ProCard reconciliation. This Starbucks and Panera are not going to go through P2P because you're not having them come on campus, you're not having them serve students or faculty or staff. You're just going there, you're picking it up and you're bringing it back. So this would be hospitality justification form and you're going to get this approved before you go to pick it up. That's another point. This form has to be completed before you charge your ProCard. So please make sure you get this done before the act of purchasing on your ProCard. So anything where you're going out and you're picking it up, that's hospitality justification and your ProCard. And then you reconcile. It's only when catering is actually being done on campus. So like a Hodel's, a Mossman's, that would be P2P. And if you ever have questions, you can reach out. You can email the CSUBuy@csub.edu email, and we can help you out and let you know which route to take. Are you good on that, Nadia? Okay, yeah, I think she's good. Okay. And yes, Marlene, thank you for the FYI on the Mac process. Okay, any other questions, or we're good to move on to the next part of the agenda? Okay, I think we're good.
All right, so I am going to stop sharing and go ahead and pass things back to Melissa to talk about ProCard reconciliation.
So when it comes time to reconcile your Pro card, I think it's pretty straightforward, but we can just start from the beginning. So when you're reconciling your Pro card, you obviously go into CFS. In CFS, you have a 7-day business period where you add statement descriptions to your transactions. You can change the chart fields, the account according to whether there were official guests or if it was employees only. This is something that I've been really trying to communicate with cardholders is to add statement descriptions, especially when you have several hospitality expenses that are for different events, whether it's meetings or events on campus. And if there's no statement description for us to know when we're auditing which transaction goes with which receipt, which backup documentations go with which event, it can be a little uh, difficult to figure out. And so it's really helpful when cardholders go into CFS during that 7-day business period where they can make those changes, add those statement descriptions. Even if you're not ready to submit your reconciliation, you can just putting in that information, it'll stay there whenever you are ready. So just adding something simple in the straight descriptions fields like um, a department meeting, or if you have a candidate come on campus for a job position, candidate meal, commencement refreshments for volunteers, things like that. So that way we know the business purpose of why you made those transactions for those specific events or those meetings. Um, Again, with foundation, non-UA employees who have foundation pro cards require Heath's signature. If your hospitality form, for whatever reason, although it shouldn't, does not have Heath's signature on it, it will need to be when you route it for approvals. Um, that is required. It's um, it's been required. Um, chart fields as well. If you need to change the account codes, again, 660828 is for students and guests, and 660090 are for employees only. That also includes student assistants. So that's when you will go into CFS and make those changes. Once those 7 days are up, the ProCard reconciliation then moves from ProCard adjustments to ProCard completed inquiry. I've seen some cardholders be a little confused with that. So ProCard adjustments is during those 7 days where you can make the changes to your statement descriptions, to your chart fields. If you don't, if you are not able, or for whatever reason you don't make those changes within those 7 business days, once that is up, the reconciliation will then move to ProCard completed inquiry. You'll have to download it as it is. And if you were not able to change the account codes or the chart fields, you will need to submit a journal entry to accounting to have those funds moved to a different chart field. And if you didn't put any statement descriptions, I kindly ask that either you edit the form, the statement report, or on the receipts, you put what the event was, so that way we can still have some type of guide as to what we're looking at. Um, in regards to your backup documentation, when you make hospitality transactions, there needs to be a detailed receipt. What we mean by that is what food was ordered, because there are some restaurants that obviously serve alcohol, and we need to make sure that on the business units that are not foundation, there is no alcohol being purchased. We need to see what was ordered, what time, who was the vendor, what was the total cost, and the cost breakdown. Were there any other service fees? Was there gratuity? What's the general total? And we need to make sure that that total matches the total that was charged to your statement report. If it is not, there needs to be an explanation as to why there is a discrepancy because we cannot guess why it's maybe $10 short or it's $15 short. We need you to let us know what we're looking at. In addition to the itemized receipt, obviously the hospitality form pre-approved needs to be attached, as well as a guest flyer, an email invite with the names of those that were invited, or a flyer if it was an open campus event. Enter details on the blanket justification form. If you're using a blanket form, please, please, please have it modified to the event it's being used for. So if you have a blanket form for, let's say you do trainings, monthly trainings, please, underneath the descriptions with the vendor name, the date of the event, what the event name is, the cost calculations, please just next to those amounts of the original form, just add in um, the information of the event it's being used for. Because when it comes to auditing, an auditor will look at those and will want to make sure that those coincide with what the documentation has, with what the backups are, and what the statement report is showing as well. So it's really important and it helps us out a lot as well. Once you have all of that attached, you have your hospitality form, your detailed receipt, your guest list or flyer or email invite, and any other information that you believe is there. Like Bethany said, if you have a multi-day event, also attach the cost breakdown of what each meal is going to be. So that way, we're not like, what, $100 for like a 2-day event? It's like $100 per person. So that way we have, again, you're telling us a story of what the cost breakdown was. Adding all of that, you're going to include that with your reconciliation. And that is going to help us to see what the business purpose was, make sure that there was a hospitality just added to that. There was the detailed receipt that, doesn't contain alcohol, or if there does, that it be on foundation funds. And that it doesn't go over the allowed cost on the form. There have been instances where when we are auditing, we come across hospitality forms that have, let's say, for example, a $500 approved signed form. That is the amount that you were approved to spend on that specific meeting, let's say. Sometimes cardholders will go a little bit over. They might spend $600 instead of the 500 that was approved. If that happens, while you need to catch that before you submit your form, and you will need to submit a new hospitality form with the difference and get that approved, again, for auditing reasons. So it's really important that as you're reconciling your statement before you submit it, you make sure that the cost that you have approved, that is approved on your form, stays within those limits whenever you are actually making the purchase for, Panera or wherever you're buying your meals. Another thing we also look at is chart fields to make sure that the chart fields on the hospitality form matches the chart field that is being charged on the statement report. Let's say, for example, you're on a stateside fund, you're using a CMP Pro card, but SPA is going to be purchasing the meal for you. Unfortunately, in CFS, you cannot change chart fields to a different business unit. It needs to be within the same business unit. Therefore, you will need to submit a journal entry to accounting to move those funds. And that is kind of what we look at in regards to hospitality expenses when we are auditing. So if anyone has any questions in regards to any of that, please feel free to unmute or ask, or you can ask also in the chat.
And Melissa brought up a good point with the dollar totals when you're filling out a hospitality justification form for a single event. You'll always want to estimate a little bit high as long as you're within the per person limits. you can even put the full per person limit if you want. If your department is comfortable with you approving that full amount, you can go ahead and do that. Because if you spend less, that is always okay. You can always spend less than what is approved on your form. You don't want to run into a situation where your form does not cover how much you actually have to spend.
Anybody have any questions? Or any questions at all about, anything that we've showed you?
I
I
have a
don't,
question.
yeah.
I just want to know, and I just want some feedback. Um, how is everybody feeling about the new hospitality justification form? Do you like it better? Is it easier? Like, okay, it looks cleaner. Like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how is our vibe on it? Like, is it a 6? Is it a 2? Like,
It
I just
looks
want
so
to
much
know
better. It looks
what's our
cleaner.
vibe?
It looks
I love the changes.
friendly.
It makes it more clear. Yes, I like it. 10. It isn't as intimidating. Okay, I did my job. Yes. Okay.
Martha
Yes.
Manriquez had her hand up. I think she wanted to comment something.
Yeah,
Martha?
Martha.
No, I'm not sure if I'm thinking of this form because I've only used it one time and I don't know. It was in May, I think we used it. So I don't know if it's brand new. Was it just changed? Okay. Oh, I haven't used it. But is that the one when you send when you have to put in who has to look at it first? Like I have to put in our admin analyst. When you first submit it and then you get it back,
That's
that
the pre-form.
yeah, okay. So you can just put any emails in the order that you want them to look at it, right? I think that's where I was a little bit confused when I had to do something and because you can't see how they're gonna sign on the form or somebody doesn't really need to sign, they just need to initial, but it doesn't
So
give you those choices.
what you're describing would probably be a reviewer. There are two
Yeah,
spots for
reviewer.
reviewers, and they look at it before the DOA approver signs it. So
Yeah.
if you need to send it to somebody else after you sign it, but before the DOA does, that would be a reviewer.
But are they designated as reviewer on there?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
the fields are reviewer one and reviewer two. You can have
okay,
two of them if you want. They're not required. You don't have to use them, but if you
yeah.
have somebody who wants to fill that role, you would use the reviewer one field for that.
I might be thinking of a different form then. I remember not noticing if it was a reviewer or not. Anyway, that's okay. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and I see that Cami Salyards asked, will this new full policy be added to the website? So the hospitality policy has not actually changed. That's still the same, and it's on the website. It's on our payment services web page. The hospitality justification form is the only thing that we've changed, and there will be a quick reference guide for that. That will be coming soon.
So another thing that I want to let you guys know, I'm making tons of updates to the payment services website. So I would highly recommend that you guys go to the payment services website and you look at it. So there's like a new accounts payable payment matrix. Like there was no accounts payable tab on the payment services website. So there's now an accounts payable tab. I made a ProCard tab on the payment services website, and I'm going to have procurement take their ProCard um, information off of their website because now ProCard is under me and is under payment services. So please, if you have questions about anything, travel has a lot of updates. I'm making a lot of updates to the website and I'm trying to make it more understandable and clear exactly how I'm doing with the hospitality justification form. So try to go to the website first if you have a question because I'm making tons of updates and changes. And if you can't find it there, then absolutely feel free to email accounts payable, email me, email Bethany, email Melissa, whoever you can. But there's so many updates, I can't really cover it with you right now, but I'm trying to just restructure our website where it makes sense. You can find the information easily. No bold, no underline, no red font, no craziness. So there's a lot of restructuring being done within payment services and on the website. So please check our website.
I also want to pop in and say something else as well in regards to specifically just ProCard. We are in the process of updating the handbook as well to be more uh detailed a bit more, to be more clear on some aspects that we've been noticing when we are auditing. Um, and I know with ProCard, there have also been some changes throughout the year that, kind of pop up when we email you in regards to questions about your ProCard statements. So, um, there will be a newsletter coming out hopefully within the next week or two. And as changes arise with ProCard specifically, a new newsletter will be sent out with those changes. So that way it's better communicated with everyone what those changes are. So no one is in the dark or, because I can definitely understand everyone's frustration with all these changes, coming up with ProCard but we didn't do this before, or now this is required. And so I know that we need to be more communicative with you guys, and so we're definitely gonna. That's one of our biggest goals, just as a unit and as a team as well. So, just kind of bear with us a little bit. We will be getting all that information out to you, and we're really doing our best, on the back end of that.
I think Nadia has her hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you. This is a very helpful training. I just have a question. I think somebody asked a similar one. I already have a blanket form for our monthly new employee orientations. Do I need to resubmit it with the new form that will be published today?
No.
Okay, thank you.
If you already have something that's in progress, you don't have to do this new form. We're just trying to train you on the new form so that you know how to use it when it goes live. So if you've already done something, you already have something in progress, don't worry about it. You don't have to do the new thing. I just want you to know how to use the new form when it goes live. And I wanted to give you a chance to ask your questions now so that you're not shocked and surprised, like, oh, there's a new form. How do I use it? What do I do? So you're good to go. You already have it done. You're good. You don't need to do a new one.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I will add on to what Bianca said too. The new form has pretty much the same information on it that the old form had. There's a lot less policy on the form. It's more just the fields, but the information that you're filling out is basically the same as it was on the old form.
Okay, so we're a little over time, but I want to make sure we're getting all of your questions. So any other questions that you have? I have a copy of the chat and I have everything that I need to circle back with you guys on because I know there's some like reimbursement questions floating around. So I have everything in the chat saved. So I will circle back on questions we did not answer today. I know reimbursement's floating around in there. So I have it. I will get answers to you. But are there any other questions before we conclude? Okay, well, I hope this meeting was helpful for you guys. I hope you enjoy your last 3-day weekend before we start the semester or the new academic year. Thank you guys all for attending, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you so much for making the time. Have a
And
great
we're gonna
rest
get
of the
Melissa a
weekend.
webcam. I ordered it. It's coming.
You'll see my face soon enough.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Have a good weekend. Thank you for attending.